Welcome back to Liberty Bytes on the Think Liberty Network. I'm your host, William Gadsden. You can follow me personally on Twitter at William_Gadsden or on Facebook by the same name. Follow Think Liberty on Facebook, Twitter, or whatever your favorite social media outlet is. Give us a follow and a like for updates on new episodes and more. So, the midterms happened. They were a thing. The dust has finally settled. But what exactly happened? Some Democrats are declaring a blue wave happened. Republicans are saying it's more like a trickle. But that, as usual, is only so much rhetoric and even less of the facts. So let's dive into the numbers here. While there are 3 congressional elections and 1 Senate election still being contested, it looks like the Republicans lost 26 seats in the House, while the Democrats lost 2 in the Senate. So does this constitute a blue wave? Well, hardly. Historically, the sitting party loses an average of 35 seats in the House and 7 in the Senate. That would mean that simply to reach the average, much less a blue wave, Democrats would have had to gain 9 more seats in the House and have won 9 seats in the Senate, not lost 2. For every issue and poll that the media tries to make out to be a referendum on President Trump, the one vote that actually could be considered as such doesn't even come close to reflecting the image that they are trying so hard to project. But the Republicans aren't much better off here. In losing control of the House, they will be hard-pressed to get any meaningful legislation passed under a unified Democratic majority. But that brings me to my next point. Is the Democrat Party truly as unified as they would like us to believe? 17 Democrat representatives have already signed a letter refusing to back Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House, signaling an astounding divide in the Democrat Party. Many of the young, fresh-faced representatives coming into Congress are among those that are widening the gap between the old and the new in the Democrat Party, going as far as to say that their refusal to back Pelosi is based on the, quote, need for younger Democrats to rise to positions of power within Congress. Now, speaking of Nancy Pelosi, upon news that the Democrats would be gaining a majority in the House, she was quoted as saying that tomorrow is, quote, a new day in America. Except it won't be. It will be more of the same. More rhetoric and mudslinging, more gridlock and bomb throwing, and no change for the American people, the voters that hired these people in the first place. There is one good thing that came out of the midterms, though, and that is multiple record-breaking numbers when it comes to voting. Finally, people are paying attention to something other than a general presidential election. This is wonderful. But that's really only half of the whole here. Because, as usual, the choices were based around team sports and identity politics. All I've seen ever since the election was a parade of identity politics firsts. First Native American woman to Congress, which, wasn't that supposed to be Elizabeth Warren? Weird. First black female attorney general in this state. First LGBTQQAAIPP2+ congressperson in this other state. First Muslim mayor of this city. But not a word about their politics. Not a single soundbite about what they are going to do for the voters that hired them. And it's working. This is the disease that identity politics leads to. Everyone is clapping one another on the back and high-fiving over electing this first and that first, with absolutely no concern over what they are going to do in the position of power that they were just elected to. It's like they pull the lever for their team and then dust their hands off and say, well, I did my job, with a smile on their faces. Content in the knowledge that they had a hand in electing the first this or the other that in terms of social identity or skin color, but of no thought of what effect that person's policies will have on their lives. Nor is anyone discussing it now. Identity politics is kicking practicality's ass, and it will be to the detriment of the American people. But we don't just see this in the midterms. Take Democrat Anna V. Eskamani, for example, the first Iranian-American woman ever elected to the Florida legislature. Hooray! She was recently interviewed on CNN about Trump's foreign policy towards Iran. Clearly, because she's a policy expert? Maybe from Iran originally, so she has a sort of, like a personal cultural knowledge to bring to the discussion. Anna Eskamani was born and raised in Orlando to Iranian parents and earned degrees and certifications in political science, women's studies, nonprofit management, public administration, and gender studies, which is a weird way of saying expert in foreign policy. No. Instead, she is on for at least a half-hour interview criticizing the administration's foreign policy and siding with Saudi Arabia instead of Iran, and skewering the administration for pointing out that Iran is the world's top state sponsor of terrorism. But perhaps I'm wrong. Perhaps she was magically imbued with expertise upon being born to Iranian parents. That's enough about the Republicans and Democrats, though, because I have a few words for my fellow small and large L libertarians. Look, y'all, I get the whole edgy, we lost one master to gain another, or I didn't vote because of the two-party system arguments. But I think it's time to face the fact that, for now at least, we have to work within the system that we have, not the system that we want. It does us no good to take our ball and go home because things aren't going our way, because politics is going to march on with or without us. We have to play the cards that we have been dealt, even if that means holding our nose and voting for a party that isn't yet up to our political standards, but is certainly closer than the other. In the meantime, work to change that party from the inside, to make it pay more attention to the agenda of liberty. Work within the caucuses that already exist in the party, the Republican Liberty Caucus or the Freedom Caucus. Support the few congressmen and women that still left that actually stand for liberty and personal freedom. Doing literally anything is better than doing nothing at all. But at least you can virtue signal to your other libertarian friends. If there is a main takeaway from the midterms, it's this. Nobody won. The Democrats gained a narrow majority in the House but lost seats in the Senate. The Republicans lost the majority in the House but gained seats in the Senate. And the American people will continue to see gridlock for at least the next 2 years under the duopoly. Thanks for joining us, and I hope you'll come back again next week to become more liberty-centered with us. I'm William Gadsden with Think Liberty.